Welcome to the perfunctory exercise in any programming course, the Hello World program. We're going to use this here to give you a real brief look at Visual Studio 2012. And for those of you who may be a little bit newer here, you'll kind of see the flow of working in Visual Studio. So notice I'm in Windows 7 because I'm staying kind of true to the layout of the original course. You can use Windows 8 or 8.1. It's going to be just a little different on the startup, but we're concerned here with C# and understanding the various functionalities of C#. So we're going to keep it basic. So notice I'm going to open Visual Studio 2012. If you don't have it pinned to the start bar, I can show you. You can go into All Programs and you will see Microsoft Visual Studio 2012. And you can find it there. Now notice when Visual Studio 2012 opens, it gives me these start menus. Now my text is larger because of the computer setup that I talked about earlier in the course, and I'm going to create a new project. Now I can click on the hypertext link right here, New Project, or I can go up to File, click there, choose New, and choose Project there. It's all the same. It takes me to exactly the same location. I'll click on the hypertext link and I'm going to create a Windows Forms application. Don't worry about any of this other stuff right now. I'm going to change the name of it to Hello World. And notice this is showing me where it's going to put my project files. We'll talk about that later. And we are going to create a separate directory for this solution. And I'll hit OK. This is going to set up the environment for my Windows Forms project entitled Hello World. And right away, as soon as this sets up, you're going to see the organization has started for me. It's presenting my first base form for this application. And it's also created a solution called Hello World. Here is my project right here, Hello World. And there's some other things. Here's the form I'm looking at, and then all the code behind code that you will see back here a little bit later on. Now, we want this form to do something. So let's just talk about the very basics on building an application in Visual Studio using C#. I need some sort of button, checkbox. I need something for the user to interface with here. So I will click on the toolbox over here. And notice it might take it a minute the first time to go through these and get them up there for you. And I'm going to double click on the button. And if I double click on the button, it will drop a button on there for me. Now let me show you another thing I can do. I'm going to right click on this and delete that button. But if I come out here and click on Toolbox and pin this, it will make my form show up, and now I can grab the button and drag it onto the form and put it very close proximity to where I'd like it to be anyway. Then on any individual object on the form, by selecting it, I can go to the Properties window over here and I can change things. Notice right now it's showing button 1. I can change this to click, and it puts a text on there of click. All right. And I can scroll around through these various properties, and notice on name it's button 1, and I'm just going to call this click. Okay, so I'm going to get the name of my button is to be click, and I'm going to call it click button so it's a little easier for you to see. Now I changed the name of the object to click button, and I changed the text of the object to click. Okay. Now if I double click on my button, it takes me to the code behind page, and I can write the code that I want to run whenever that button is clicked. And so I'm going to unpin the toolbox so I have more space here. And now let's write some code. I'm going to use the .NET framework and some of the namespaces. We'll talk about all this a little bit later on. I'm going to do System, and you'll notice IntelliSense is helping me. I hit period, then I'm going to the Windows namespace, hit period, the Forms namespace, period, and I'm going to call the message box function, or the message box method, and then I will call the show method on the message box class. Then I'll open parentheses, we'll put in a string, Hello World, give it a couple of exclamation points as if we're excited, close with the semicolon, go to the next line, and we've just put our code in. So now I want to see this do something. I'll go up here to the button bar and I will click on the start with the little green play button. This will compile the code. It'll let me know if it sees any problems with it. And if there are no problems, then I will be presented with my form. And right here it is. And so notice if I click on this, I get a message box pop up that says Hello World. And just like that, I have created a very, very simple program. Now the flow that you see there, The different windows, the different things we do will be the same in any C# application. For the most part, it's going to be very, very similar. We have obviously a lot of tools, a lot of things we can do. This can be an intimidating interface. We're going to go step by step, get you very comfortable with it. Notice my original form is up here on a tab. I can always go back to it. I can move things around and make adjustments. I can always get back to my code at any time by clicking on the Form 1CS tab up there, or I can always double click my individual object. So that's a real basic outlook on building programs using C# in Visual Studio. And that's going to be the basis that we're going to use to launch the entire rest of the course. Hope this kind of helps you feel a little more acclimated to the Visual Studio environment, and that's Hello World. And by the way, I'll put a little copy of this in case you should want that complex code out there in the work files folder.